What's love got to do with it? Romans chapter 13, verse 10. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Why is love the fulfillment of the law? Two phrases sum up the 10 Commandments as well as the whole of God's law. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22, verses 37 and 39. Jesus said, "On these 2 commandments depend the whole law and the prophets." Matthew 22:40. Paul and James both correctly understand the second of these commandments to be a summary of the first. Romans 13:9, Galatians 5, verses 13 and 14, and James 2:8. Loving one's neighbor is necessarily tied to first committing oneself to loving God. Note that in each of these passages the apostles claim that loving one's neighbor is the fulfillment of the law. Love is the foundation of a healthy and productive society because it guarantees that God is the society's centerpiece and that its citizens act in ways that are consistent with one another's welfare. Paul encouraged the Galatian Christians to love God and walk by the Spirit, the fruit of which is love, joy, peace, kindness, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Living in the Spirit of God gives people an ability or aptitude to behave in ways that protect rather than threaten society. See Galatians 5, verses 16 and 22 to 25. These character traits originate in God, allow people to serve each other appropriately, and enable them to fulfill the whole law of God. Galatians 5, verses 13 and 14. James equates God's love with impartiality. The message of God is inconsistent with favoritism, which is a violation of the law. James 2:9. Only through impartiality does one genuinely reflect the mind of God and make available the mercy that those in need require. See James 1:27 and James 2:13. Impartiality is an expression of love which fulfills the intent of the law. Paul informs the Roman believers that they are to owe no individual anything except love. Romans 13:8. A person should pay his taxes and faithfully make loan payments, but he cannot pay off his debt to love humanity. The love God has bestowed on humanity cannot be equaled. Ephesians 5, verses 1 and 2, and 1 John 4, verses 10 and 11. Perfect love is the oxygen of heaven, the absence of selfishness, 1 John 3:14, and the pursuit of every believer, 1 Corinthians 14:1, and 1 Corinthians 16:14. By description, divine love is monogamous, abhors harm to others, obtains possessions honorably, and is content with God's blessing. Romans 13:9. Please also see 1 Corinthians 13, verses 1 through 8. Today's self-serving and emotionally based understanding of love makes Romans 13:10 confusing. The very fact that we do so much that is detrimental to our relationships with God, our spouses, our children, and with our neighbors indicates that we are quite selfish and do not love them as much as we think. Our maturity is measured by our ability to identify and overcome our shortcomings. Our inconsistency in loving others is definitely one of those shortcomings. However, the more like God we become, the more we are able to love. Therefore, the goal of every person is to know and love God more, so that his or her neighbors are wronged less. That is, loved more. The focus of God's law throughout Scripture is to create and develop loving relationships between God and humanity, and between human beings. As love accomplishes this, God's law is being fulfilled.